This is Murray State University professor Dr. Michael Waag doing one of his favorite things, screening slides from his many trips to South America. His travels began in the 1960s when he was a Peace Corps volunteer. He keeps going back, sometimes taking students with him.
Well, I did a study abroad trip to Ecuador in the summer of 2011 with the Kentucky Institute for International Studies. And Dr. Waag was one of the co-directors, co-professors that went along with our trip. We had, I think, 25 students and Dr. Waag and then another professor from Western Kentucky University. And we went all around Ecuador. We were in the mountains, we were in the rainforest, we were at the beach, we were everywhere. And Dr. Waag has this way, well, he's been to Ecuador many times before. I think he did the Peace Corps in Ecuador back in like the 60s or something, a long time ago. And so he was able to get everyone excited about traveling around Quito, which is the capital of Ecuador. He'd be like, hey, you guys, there's this really old bookstore that I went to in like the 80s, or I went to last time I was here, we should go check it out. It's, maybe a 15-minute walk. So we would go, and as we would walk to the bookstore, as we would walk to a museum that he wanted to go see, he would tell us things. Well, okay, this is where, the Peace Corps headquarters used to be, or, this architecture is this. And he's a big history guy, so it was really fun kind of being able to see Quito through his eyes.
Dr. Waag's travels were by plane, bus, and foot as he explored the Andes Mountains. His slide photography documents the beauty and the adventure of his travels. He also discovered regional differences in languages. He immersed himself in the culture and the history of these regions and learned the Portuguese language through trips to Manaus, a remote city in northern Brazil. In this remote jungle, Dr. Waag discovered something he never, ever expected to see.
Fabulous city, but a strange city, almost a magical place. I didn't know what it meant, but as I wandered through it, it looked pretty decrepit, and yet there were all the earmarks of it having been a fabulously wealthy place. French Baroque architecture, beautiful but now crumbling mansions, tired little coffee shops with accoutrements that in their day must have been spectacular. Out in the street, there were streetcar rails, but no streetcars. And as I wandered around, I came upon what was truly bizarre. An opera house out in the middle of the Amazon jungle. Then I came to know later that Caruso had sung in that opera house.
Dr. Waag plays the guitar really, really well. During class, sometimes instead of having an end of the class discussion, he'll sing us out, literally sing us out of class. So he'll put his, a transparency on the overhead and put it up on the wall, and he'll sing Cierto Lindo, which is a Spanish song. That's one of his favorites, I think. While we were in Ecuador, he had made, I guess, on some of his other travels to Ecuador, he had made some guitar playing friends, and they came to our hostel and played with us, and he loves it. He's an excellent guitar player. whether they're his actual Spanish students or just any students, he really wants them to study abroad because he feels that study abroad is such an important experience for anyone, not necessarily college students, but anyone should take the chance to study abroad because of the experiences you can have in another country. He'll go around to other classrooms and he'll get out his projector and he'll show pictures from, a Spain trip that he took or Mexico, and then he has a Spanish professor, so usually his photos are from Latin American countries, but I've seen pictures from Spain that he's gone on, pictures from Mexico, just in the last maybe 10 years or so that he's been on.
A true academic, Waag is interested in the culture and the development of the places he visited. Travel with him includes a few history lessons like this.
All of what we saw there were the remnants of the rubber boom. Yes, this was back in the late 1800s. The Amazon was the sole source of rubber in the entire world. They had an absolute monopoly. And ships would sail up the Amazon as far as they could from Liverpool and New York and various other points of departure to that city to bargain, sometimes with rubber barons that didn't even wear shoes, for rubber at fabulous, fabulous prices.
I'm really glad Dr. Waag was able to be the other professor on this trip to Ecuador, not only because he's a Murray State guy, it's always nice to have more Murray State people, but he really knows his stuff.
Bolivia, the highest capital city in the world. What's going on? Oh yes. That's that desert. Yeah, there's the descendant.
Murray State is the founding member of the Kentucky Institute for International Studies. Through this program, Dr. Michael Waag has made South America a classroom where he shares his passion for South American culture.
I'm really glad Dr. Waag was able to be the other professor on this trip to Ecuador, not only because he's a Murray State guy, it's always nice to have more Murray State people, but he really knows his stuff. He always has an interesting tidbit, interesting fact, interesting history to tell us, whether we were in the rainforest or whether we were at the beach, and you're kind of always learning when you're with him, which